I've been looking forward to this for a long time. And I finally got the Me and My Golf Boys on the podcast. Andy, Piers, how you guys? Welcome to the show, man.
We're great. Thank you so much. Well, I say we're great. I'm great. I don't know about Andy, but yeah.
I'm doing okay too. Thank you, Mark.
Look at him. He looks like $1 million. He's great. He's doing just fine over there. Hey, boys, before we get into the subject matter, I want to put you into context. And for those folks who've been, I guess, asleep under golfing rocks and haven't seen Me and My Golf and the content you guys put out, let's tell them who you are. And I know you Wolverhampton boys, and a little backstory on me. Back in the day when I lived in Chiswick in London, I knew Peter Baker well. And He was a Wolverhampton boys, big Wanderers fan. Yeah. So I learned about where you guys are from. So tell us the quick story. Let's start with you, Piers.
Yeah, I mean, so the quick story, as much as we can, is myself and Andy played junior golf together. We always said that we should do, we were going through PGA training together pretty much. And we always said that we should do a business together. We had the Three Hammers driving range in Wolverhampton. We took that from a couple of scabby bays to, a performance center indoors and this beautiful netted area outside. And we were churning out loads of those lessons and loving what we were doing, but realized we got to a point where we were done. We were hourly rates. We were only so many people we could touch in a week. And it was great, but it was just limited. So we wanted to do something different. And we were very much into our fitness and looking on YouTube and seeing these YouTube fitness guys and girls reaching massive numbers and actually looking like they were creating a living for themselves out of it as well. So we thought, hang on, but there's something in this. So we signed our last 15-month contracts knowing we were going to be leaving, and we wanted to go traveling. We wanted to travel the world. And we did that for 3 months. We had some amazing experiences, a couple of months in the US. And then we went to Australia, Hong Kong, China, meeting great golf coaches along the way. So like people like Martin Hall in America, then Dennis McDade in Melbourne. And just kind of having a little bit of time, fueling our passion to travel, which is massive, but also fueling the thoughts on what Me and My Golf could be, because we kind of started it loosely, but we didn't know exactly what it was going to be. And then from there, obviously, we thought, well, look, people were turning up with the same issues all the time. When we were at Three Hammers driving range, we were hearing the same issues online as well when people were commenting to us. So we thought, you know what, there's something in this. We feel we can offer some value and offer some reach and still do the things that we love as well.
Lovely. Hey, Andy, I've been a fan from afar. I was telling Piers before you logged on, and I love the content you bring, and I love the approach. You've got a really holistic style about the both of you. And to me, it seems like you're technical, but you're more coaches. You're more player coaches than what you are technical instructors, if you will. Comment on that.
Yeah, do you know what? I think that's a real topic of discussion for me and Piers at the moment, because I think one of the passions of us is actually getting people better at golf. Mm-hmm. And we know that it's far more than just the technical things that are going to get people better at golf. We've had numerous conversations over the last couple of weeks going, right, there's an opportunity here to really make people better. A lot of people want the instruction and the tangible things and the things that they can see. Exactly. Yeah. I'm doing this on screen here because we know all about all these things.
Folks listening to this, go to YouTube, check it out. But Andy and I are joking about, wrist flexion and the like, all of the hot topics on social media right now.
Exactly. It's great, isn't it? You don't even have to say anything. You know what we're talking about. But yeah, there's an opportunity there. And I think that in terms of me and Piers, we've always had this approach. Golfers are coming to us, and our passion is wanting them to actually play better golf. And we knew very early on that us just talking about swing plane and club face and body pivot isn't going to cut it. We need to understand what they do from a mental side. We need to understand, well, how much rotation can they do in their right hip and how much shoulder mobility have they got? So there's so much involved in the whole holistic approach. And we don't want to be shortchanging people. We want to be able to go, well, look, we've got the tools that can really help you. And I think it's something that for me and Piers now moving forward on, we're more and more moving in that direction to go, well, yes, the technical side of it is really important, but how can we make people actually better? How can we get them having more fun and coming in going, I've shot better today as opposed to I've hit P3 and P4 better. Amen. We don't want that. And that we steer away from that a little bit. And we know that the technical things are important, but we know that there's such a bigger picture than actually just hitting those positions in the swing.
And kudos to you guys for the folks that can go and look at your website. You've assembled a cast of characters around you too, which Carl Morris has been on the show. I think he's brilliant. You got a rules person, you got fitness, you got the whole thing around you guys too. So it sort of begs the question, Piers. In an industry, I've been in this industry since '96. I'm dating myself here. It's very ego driven. It's very singular. It's kind of dog eat dog. And here's two boys, childhood friends, athletes, get together. And you guys have shed the ego to go, well, I might not know something, so I'm bringing in a mind to help golfers get better. Your thoughts there?
Yeah, do you know what? There's no way. I would say almost a golf coach, really, if you were talking about a player, it's almost like a GP, a general practitioner, someone who knows enough to get by, enough to be able to help the person in front of them get better. But if they need to be able to seek a specialist, they know who to then speak to. And then, so for instance, Carl Morris is, a massive influence on myself and Andy's lives, never mind our coaching. But having someone like that you can go to, and it's a conduit that that your player, what Carl is going to say to that player, you have an understanding, but it's always going to come better from someone who spends all day, every day thinking about that subject. Whereas what we need to do is we need to have a good amount of knowledge on everything, really, but then be able to branch out into these experts, because it's just crucial. You spend a long time studying something, you're going to be better at it than someone who doesn't, for sure.
All right, before we go here, Andy, you're both athletes, and you can see this. And so before we get into surefire ways to lower your score, talk to the viewer /listener about just the value of being an athlete. Not just the golf person that goes out and does my 1 or 2 stretches before I go and tries to play better. Let's speak about athleticism.
I mean, I think me and Piers have both always been interested in fitness and looking after ourselves. And I think it helps that we are working together a lot, because I think we just both feed off each other. But I think one of the important things that's probably pushed us in that way as well, and certainly now more than ever, is that when we've been coaching golfers, the average golfer, let's say, is male comes to see us between 35 and let's say 70. And the amount of golfers who come to us and we're going, right, okay, we'd love you to be able to just create a little bit more rotation on the backswing and turn into this hip a little more. And we're going, well, he just can't do it. His right hip's really tight, his thoracic spine's really tight, and therefore things are just so hard to do. So I think one of the things that spurs us on to be athletes and to look after our bodies now is that when we're 50, which maybe we're getting closer towards that now. We're 50,
I resemble that remark, by the way. Okay.
When we're 50 or 60, I think the longevity is such an important factor in it. So our training has changed over the years from just doing weights to now more stretching, more yoga, more holistic, more looking at what we're eating, more energy. So it's looking more on the health side of things, because we want to be in this game for a long time. And we know what happens if we don't do this in 10, 15 years time. The inactivity, the sitting at a desk, the not stretching, the not looking after your body leads to injuries. And I want to be playing this game when I'm 75, still being able to move and feel good and walk around the golf course. So part of it's performance, part of it's health, but part of it is just being able to, go and experience playing golf for as long as you can on a golf course. And these things need to be taken care of on a weekly basis to give you that benefit years down the line. So the things that we do now are for when we're 65.
Hey, one of the great goals, in my opinion, in fact, it's mine. You can shoot your lowest score and stuff, but to shoot one's age is such a big deal. And I know folks who've done it a few times, and it's like the life's achievement. So to build on that, I think it's cool. Piers, what about just throwing, jumping, kicking, running, all that sort of stuff? I mean, it's a part of what we do, right?
It's huge. And we did a Facebook Live this morning, and there was a guy in the group, and he said, what should my toddler be doing? And you think of a toddler, but you know, this is anyone listening to this, it's well worth doing. But jumping, you know, throwing, lunging, all of these explosive movements are all what we would call physical literacy. So getting your body to be literate in the movement of athletic striking. You know, we look what we're trying to do. You look at the world, you look Carl Berkshire, Joe Miller. These guys are absolute machines. But a lot of the guys who are really good, and I don't know how sort of Trevor fits into this mold, obviously being a Masters champion, but they were probably pretty good at other movements. Mm-hmm. You know, they were probably pretty good at other sports.
All-round athletes, really. I mean, all of these guys, and there's cross-pollination. Back in the day, I gave Tim Henman a golf lesson or two. And he has a Wimbledon finalist, you know, has won around the world, tennis player, picked up a golf club. Next thing, he was a 7 handicap in the blink of an eye kind of deal.
Yeah. Well, my background is I didn't start playing golf, and I can hit the ball well still. I didn't start playing golf till I was 15, 16 years of age, but I was able to hit the ball straight away because of the other sports that I've done before that.
Hey, you know what you've done? Every parent listening to this right now, who have got designs on child going to college, getting a scholarship, playing on the LPGA or the PGA Tour, you're like, well, perhaps they didn't have to start.
Yeah, but you know what? There's evidence of that, isn't there? I think Greg Norman was a late starter, obviously, and he was obviously a tremendous athlete before that. So, yeah, like you say, cross-pollination is there for sure.
All right, perfect. Let's go. Surefire ways to lower your score, not just improve your golf swing, because, you know, and all the strokes gain folks are going to get after me because, you know, I say, look, driving the ball along is one thing, but that's never turned your score low ever. So I'm sure you guys will talk about speed, but why don't you kick it off, Andy?
Okay, so I think one of the things that I really want to talk about is that it's almost like another pandemic. This is that most golfers are trying to fix their symptoms rather than their cause.
Ooh, and I think, are you preaching, brother?
so I think, you know, golfers will send us swings and go, what's wrong with my swing? I'm hanging back. I've got an early release. How do I create more lag? And they're trying to fix all the symptoms that are happening because generally all they're trying to do is square the club face up. So I think one thing that I would urge every single golfer to do is not only just think about how they can fix their swing, but understand really how it's going to change their ball flight, how it's going to have an impact on their impact, and look at actually the club face. If they're seeing a big motion, if they're seeing their body hanging back, or if they're seeing that they're early releasing the club, well, guess what? They're doing this because they're trying to compensate for squaring the club. Generally, what we see at impact. So we see all these bigger movements with the arms and the body. It's not just a case of saying, right, well, let's just fix those. We need to do something first in order to actually give us the reason to actually change those. And most golfers are on the range going, well, they're just hacking away, trying to shift the weight over to the lead leg. But actually, if they were to change this one thing and get the club face a little more square on the way back or a little bit more neutral at the top, that then gives them the green light to go, right, now you can do that. Now you can get the body working in a good way because you're not making these compensations in order to square the face. And everybody now, we're all looking at our golf swings on our phones. Most people are doing it when they're filming, and it's easy to see the big stuff. I would say really tune in to what's happening with the club face. If you look at that then will shape a lot of the things around there. And I think just forget the symptoms, look at the root cause, and everything changes.
Hey, symptomatic diagnosis, Piers. I'm a fantastic doctor too. You know, you got a snivelly nose right now. Don't treat your snivelly nose. And you see so many golf buddies. I mean, your well-intended best friends playing golf, you hanging back. You know, seeing the symptom, and then the next, like Andy says, you're trying to fix just the snivelly nose or the cough or whatever the case might be.
Yeah, look, it's huge. It's huge. I mean, it governs so much, doesn't it? It governs so much. And, you know, anyone who's listening to this who has never been able to stop their slice, no matter how much they've worked at their over the top, someone who's never really been able to take a divot and a good shot, or get they've probably hit one strike that felt great and they've never been able to replicate it before, and they never really get a divot and the ball goes too high, it's weak. All those things that I'm saying there, if you're listening to this or watching this now, just video yourself. Every phone's got slow-mo, and just look at the club face. You know, there's loads of information out there on that. So,
you know what? I've been teaching golf since Moby Dick was a minnow, right? And I can't tell you how many golfers, and you've seen them, I know you have, where they hit a slice and they're over the top. And then the next thing they hit from the inside, and that slice now starts to the right instead of the left.
They'll only do that once. They're not going to do that again.
Okay, so fix the cause, not the symptom. Start with the club face. Beautiful. How about you, Piers, number 2?
Yeah, I'll go on we'll go on the technique as well. I think we've got a couple on technique that we obviously always like to talk about. And, you know, whether we call the club face being the ruler, the king, you know, the hips are the queen, in our opinion, you know, both equally important, both really, in order to create consistency, which is the word that we're hearing all the time from golfers, I want to be more consistent. Now, that's the worst question to try and answer. But if you can manage your club face and if you can control your pelvis, I think you've got a good chance. So things that we don't like seeing in a golf swing are a pelvis that doesn't really rotate a lot in the backswing. It doesn't, and it has this sort of lateral sway away from the target. If you're a Brooks Koepka or an Ian Poulter or these type of guys, you can get away with it. We always say that the better you are as a golfer, the least important the backswing probably is. Mm-hmm. Whereas if the lower your skill level, the more important your backswing is, because we've got to prime you and get you ready, because you're not making those adjustments on the way down. You don't know how to do that yet. So you haven't been playing the game long enough or hit enough golf balls to do this. Whereas Brooks Koepka, he can put him anywhere you like in his backswing. He's still going to hit a good shot on the way down. He's got the skill to do that. So yeah, we just love seeing. I love seeing a pelvis with an iron. I don't mind if you were to draw a sway line from the ankle up to the trail hip. I don't mind seeing the pelvis rotate and come inside off that a little bit, maybe like a Justin Rose. I quite like seeing that.
You had on your, I think, Instagram account, you had a few drills that one could do inside. I believe that one with a chair by your right hip was one of them, if memory serves.
Yeah. Put a chair in there. I mean, one thing that, again, this is a great one for anyone listening, that if you are someone who sways, for instance, and you are moving and you're hitting that chair, like you said, the last thing that you want to be saying is, don't hit the chair, make sure the hip stays there, because that's the last thing you want to do. You want to create another motion to get rid of that motion. So if you can create a fluid rotation, mindful, use the chair or use an alignment stick as feedback up against that trail hip, that's fine, but don't try and stay on there, because all will happen then is you'll turn into Brooks Koepka. You won't turn your hips on the way back and you'll be cutting right across it. So creating a pivot with an iron, especially where you come off that line, I actually quite like.
Hey, Andy, that's such a good point, because so many folks, they're like, well, here I am, I'm swaying off to the right-hand side. So the next thing, they isolate their movements so much that they end up not winding up energy, whatever the case might be. And so essentially they fix, and I use that term loosely, one area, but they develop another malady. So quick commentary there.
Yeah, and I think this is, I think there's a golf coach who lives in Spain actually called Philip Balan. And I always remember him telling me this. He's like, always teach motion. Oh. And what he means by that is, rather than trying not to do something, so rather than trying to restrict your sway or trying not to sway, add a motion in. And the motion you need to add in to stop your sway is rotation. So this always creates movement and freedom rather than actually restriction. And I think one of the things I was going to add on to Piers is there, which I think is so important, is most golfers are trying to keep very, very still. They're trying to either keep their head still, restrict the movement. I actually want to free them up a lot more. I want to get them moving more free. They think their head needs to stay still. We want their head to rotate. They think their hips need to stay still. We want their hips to rotate. So if we can free them up there, but always think of what you need to do rather than what you don't want. A lot of people are going, well, they'll come to us for a lesson. I'll go, what are you thinking about? I'm trying not to sway.
Yeah.
Okay, great. What are you thinking about? I'm trying not to dip.
That's like, don't hit it in trouble.
Exactly. So you need to think about what you're trying to do, which is a positive as opposed to what you're not trying to do. It frees your body up, create more motion rather than less, and less restriction. It's big.
Fantastic. All right. We've hit 2 awesome ones already. I'm keen to see where you're going to go from here, Piers. What's number 3?
Number 3, I think tackling the rough. I mean, I don't really see many golfers that are that good playing out of the rough, and it can go from anywhere. So actually, Aaron Rye, who we work with, he uses a stats guy, Duncan Carey Golf, and he will always say to us that if any player in the world came up to him and said, how can you help me get better, without looking at them, without seeing their stats, he'd say, chip better out the rough, because even the best players do struggle to do that. That's where they lose shots. But whether it's chipping out the rough and understanding how to just look at a ball in the rough and go, well, what does that line mean I have to do? Because you know what it's like. You can have it sitting up like a snow cone, or you can have it sitting the exact opposite, 2 inches down. So you've got to be able to adapt to play those two shots, because both of those shots are not the same as you play a chip shot off the fairway, which is where we generally practice. And then you come to a longer shot out the rough, and all we generally see is that the two main things are that the yardage will dictate the club selection. So if Mr. Smith knows that they hit their 5-iron 175 yards and they've got 175 yards left to the flag, they're pulling out their 5-iron. Yeah. Now, we know they're probably not going to get a good enough strike on that ball to get it out. It's probably only going to fly 120, and whatever's short of the green is going to gobble it up. But then they don't even perhaps realize that actually, well, I'm in the rough, the grass is behind the ball there. If I come into it with a little bit more loft, a 7-iron, so I'm hitting this high launching shot which is going to have a steeper attack angle. So I'm going to miss more rough behind the golf ball, which is going to come out with less spin. It's almost coming out like a 5-iron anyway. So understanding how the ball will react out of the rough, and then understanding what the lie tells you that you can actually achieve. And then from there, understanding, well, what's the technique? Well, the technique is that generally speaking, in the rough, if it's sitting down, you have to be a little bit steeper.
That's brilliant. Hey, Andy, is it as simple as just practicing this stuff a lot more? Because the anecdote I'll share from my work as an announcer, preparation day, especially at majors, where the rough tends to be a little more punitive, you'll see every guy and his guy he's playing alongside, they're hitting balls from around greens in the rough all the time, just sort of experimenting with clubs and all sorts of stuff. So it's like they are practicing that stuff a little bit more than your average golfer who's listening, who goes to the range and perhaps hits 20 drivers off a peg.
Yeah, they're putting themselves in a position when I think that and this is the difference in mindset with the best guys in the world. They know it's going to go wrong. They expect it to go wrong sometimes, whereas the majority of amateurs are going, well, I'm hoping that nothing goes wrong today and every single lie is perfect. I think it's an element of practicing, but I think the experimentation and the education is crucial. What Piers said about going, well, I need to understand what's going to happen to the ball. The ball's going to come out less spin. It's going to travel further in the air. So that's great. But then going, well, I've got 160 yards from the green. It's normally a 7-iron. I'm going to hit wedge. I'm going to experiment today and hit wedge and see what happens. And then you start to learn and go, wow, I've hit that wedge 150 today, where normally it goes 130. And you start to sort of build up this information and library of understanding and going, well, I've got down breeze, I've got firm ground, I've got less spin. Then you make all the right decisions based on the experience that you've had and based on the understanding of what the ball is doing. And it's amazing how many people just don't understand, well, how the ball's going to react differently. If it's firm, it's down breeze and it's coming out with less spin, you need to land this 30 yards short if you can, if you can land it 30 yards short. So I think just experimenting, but going to use clubs that you've never used before, high loft, and see what you get.
Hey, one more thing. I want to camp here a little while longer, Piers. I made a quip the other day and I got a bit smashed on social media, and it was in response, or it might have been on another podcast. It was sort of in response to Bryson trying to cover every variable and in so doing make his decision making easier, because I loved what Andy said there. But the truth of it all, in my opinion, is it's still an imperfectible science. Mm-hmm. Your quick thoughts on that, because I want to unshackle the listener, the viewer, to say, okay, well, I'm going to go and do what Andy says and all these sorts of things. But you could make the right calls, but still not hit the right shot. Your quick thoughts.
Yeah, it's interesting quickly on this with Carl Morris that, talking about how to understand your expectations of hitting a shot. So you can do the perfect read. Let's say you're on a 6-foot, you can be on the perfect read. You can get everything there. You can see the line. You hit the perfect. You pick the perfect line. You hit a perfect strike. The ball's rolling. Bit of wind comes up and it just pushes it a little bit. Before you know, it doesn't turn right to left and it just misses. Now that wasn't you, and you can't control all of those variables. The thing I would say about Bryson, And you know what it's like when you're dealing with these fantastic talents, that they have to do what they feel is the right thing to do for them. Otherwise you're done. Because we've done, obviously dealing with Aaron, we've experienced this firsthand where we're going, well, this is probably what we would want him to do. But for him to do that would be the last thing that he could possibly do. So we have to find a way around that, if that makes sense. So we have to find a way around that to help him progress and to move forward. So if you say to Bryson, if his caddy came up to him and says, take a few more of these variables that you're trying to control out of the shot making selection, he'd be like, I can't do that. My brain just won't do that now.
You have got me going now. Sorry, folks. The folks who listen to this know this. And you speak of the variables in decision making. How about just the variables in what I can do under pressure? I'll never forget Mike Furyk many moons ago. I sort of commended him on, not changing Jim's technique when he was young. And I said, so what do you do? And Mike goes, we just work to a place where when Jim's on the 14th hole on the final round of the US Open and he sets up to hit a draw, that thing's going to draw.
Yeah.
And that's not changing all the variables in the golf swing too, right?
Look, I think the thing is ultimately, until you get to within 20 feet, the target's relatively big. So, until you get within 20 feet, you haven't got to be that precise. Now, I know you might say, well, okay, proximity to the hole is really important to get it close and hitting it down a long way, but you have got a good bit of fairway to aim for, and you have got a good bit of green to aim for, as long as you pick and choose your right moments, and then you become probably pretty good from 10 feet and in. You only really got to be good from 10 feet and in, I think. As long as you don't 3-putt from 20 feet, you're going to be all right.
You've given me away. You folks who have watched any of the shows I'm on, and I'll take the 18th hole at the stadium course at TPC Sawgrass. Let me tell you something there. You could be Tiger Woods. A dry ball is a happy golf ball over there. And as long as that thing's to the right off the tee, you're playing golf, to speak to your proximity thing.
Absolutely.
Okay, moving along, because I know you guys are busy. Number 4, please.
Number 4 is, I think this one's a key one. Well, they're all key, aren't they? So this is knowing your own game and playing your own game. I think just understanding your capabilities, what your limits are, and just knowing your own game. So for instance, certain things like being influenced by others. A lot of people will stand on a tee playing a game of golf and they're playing with their friend. His friend pulls driver out. They're immediately thinking that they need to pull driver out and influenced by that. It takes some character and some understanding and acceptance of your own game to go, no, this is hybrid for me, or this is 2-iron for me. I'm going to play my game irrelevant to what they're even doing. And I think there's also just great understanding to go, well, what are my strengths? What can I do? Where am I really good from? So for instance, if you've got a layup on a par 5, what distance do you want? Don't just hit it down there and hope that it gets somewhere close. Go, right, okay, I'm better from 100 yards. So I'm going to really play to that area. I'd rather be 100 than 75. Know what those numbers are and manage your game in a way that puts you in those scenarios a lot. Also know your tendencies. If you are a golfer that tends to have this little bit of left to right, you tend to miss the fairway or the green to the right, don't get on the golf course and go, right, I need to try and fix that. Play with those, put these tendencies into your game, use that to your strategy. If you've got a flag that's tight right on a par 3 with water or a bunker on the right, play that in there. Aim for the left side of the green. You don't need to aim at the flags all the time. And I think that a lot of golfers are, and then we mentioned this earlier, they're trying to play this perfect round of golf and hit the perfect shots all the time. What we're really trying to do is play or do the best score we can from an imperfect round of golf. It's always going to be imperfect. But if we can know our strengths, if we can understand our tendencies, if we can play our own game and manage it in the best way we can, that we know ourselves, irrelevant to what anyone else doing, we are going to shoot lower scores. It takes some character and it takes some strength of character to do that, to not be influenced. But I think if you can live in that place and know yourself really well, know your yardages and know your strengths, know what you can do, it's huge.
That's brilliant. Piers, I've said to many a golfer, I've likened golf to a boxing match where you get in the ring on the first tee and you're going to get punched a few times. You just don't get knocked out. And I've also said that, the golfer, no matter what the skill level is sort of like sailing a sinking ship from the first tee, and you got to get into the harbor on the other at the end of the journey with as limited damage as possible. So to Andy's point, that's the strategy of it. But how about, and I've worked with many a golfer at the highest level where they got the wandering eyes. And, you know, the PGA Tour, European Tour, it's a revolving door over there, right? I was hired this morning and I was fired this afternoon because of what so-and-so is doing over there. And then it's like, well, you see what Adam Scott's doing over there, or Tiger does this. And then the next thing, poor individual is trying to do something else and not doing what they are able to do, their own swing, their own game.
Yeah. And do you know what? And there's so many examples of this, aren't there, who, people, I mean, Tommy Fleetwood, I think, is a good example. I'm sure he wouldn't mind us talking about it. You know, came onto tour and thought, well, now I need to go to another level, which required him doing changes, which didn't work. And he dropped it back to what he knew. And even we had Faldo on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, and he was talking about, you know, when he got to the Open, everyone was building it up. He wanted to knock it down. You know, he wanted to knock it down a couple of notches so he would be able to control the position that he was in. I think, look, the easiest thing, we always want what we haven't got. And if you're on the range next to Adam Scott, you want that. You know, you're on the range next to Trevor Immelman, you want that. So, you know, I think the thing is, like Andy says, it all goes into knowing your own game to the point of what's got you to where you're at, what are you good at, and then what you're not so good at, just chip away at that. But actually also understand, does it really matter? We spoke to Tom Lewis on this. He's had a few issues with short game. And he's like got to the point where it was probably controlling him too much. So he flipped it on his head and goes, you know what? If I rip it, which he can as good as anybody, if I rip it, I'll shoot a good score. If I don't rip it, I probably won't shoot a good score. That's okay. Because if you can control what you're good at and continue to strengthen that, but then figure out the things you're not so good at, but then figure out, again, the next question is, well, which one of those things that I'm not very good at should I work at? Which one of them are flogging a donkey at, leave it alone, forget it. But whereas the ones where I think I could get better at that, then I will actually work at that.
That's so good. And if I might be presumptuous before we get to the final topic, just to build on what you guys say, this is a daily discipline, because
100%.
it's so easy to fall prey to like, oh, I want that. You know, you got to wake up with renewed vigor every single time you go out there and say, I'm going to be true and I'm going to believe in what I do. And because all of the greats I've spoken to, I know you guys have, they've sort of remained pretty true to who they are throughout their career. There's very few guys, Faldo, Tiger, you know, maybe less than a handful, that have retooled who they are.
But even they were impervious to other things that were happening. Yeah. So going through those changes, they were impervious to that. And all they'd done is they got enough information to say, Faldo had enough information, Tiger had enough information to go, no, this is what I have to do now. And they became monomaniacal on that subject, and that's it. That's what I'm going to do. And I don't care what comes at me. It's done. I'm doing it.
But I made that a golf swing conversation, so forgive me. What Andy said about the strategy and such, I think is just brilliance. All right, last one, number 5.
Last one. I think last one for okay. You could have been.
Last one of all.
There could have been 100, couldn't there? I think the one thing that we really see that damages club golfers, you know, even I suppose elite golfers as well, is expectations. And controlling your expectations.
Okay, wait, I got to show you this. I'd actually written that down. Can you see on my notepad over here?
Oh, yeah. There we go.
So while you were talking, in my head, I was like, there's so much expectation to manage all of the time.
There is. And look, this is the scary thing. You watch golf on a Sunday, okay, or a Saturday or whatever it is, whatever day you watch golf, the players you are watching are the 20 players in that tournament who are playing really well and scoring really well. You're not seeing the guy or the girl who's last and he's shanking it, 3-putting it. And, you know, this happens on the best tours, of course it does, but you're not seeing that. So you're seeing the best players playing their best game. And then you're watching that at home and going, well, I know that Tiger's better than me, but I should be quite close to him when I go and play in the medal next Thursday. And when they miss a 10-footer, they go, I should be knocking those in, you know, and then they go, well, and then they hear that Tiger hits 8 out of 10 last Sunday when or maybe he didn't miss one from inside 10 feet. And they're going, well, maybe I should be knocking 7 of these in from 10 feet. And if they actually just looked at the stats, there was Nick Starchuk, wasn't it, Andy, who did Agent 125. Great bit of information. The 125th ranked player on the tour, what they were capable of doing. And if you just look at if you just look at the fact that the guy who's 125th on the money list, who is a really good player, only hit 5 fairways around, then you might look at it and go, oh, maybe I don't need to hit every fairway when I'm playing. And maybe I shouldn't put so much pressure on myself, because you know what it's like. If you expect to do something and then don't do it, you just go into a negative downturn. Mm-hmm. And then good luck getting out of that. Whereas if you go, well, you know, I like to say to golfers, look, all you're really doing is controlling chaos. Don't expect anything other than hitting bad shots.
I love that. And
if you can hit good shots, or you can recover well, what was it? Was it Tom Kite says that a bogey is a bad decision, but a double bogey is a bad decision, followed by a dumbass decision or whatever it was. I got that wrong totally, but you know what I mean. But it's a bad shot followed by a dumbass decision, isn't it? That's a double bogey. But yeah, you know, so I think if you can just understand that you are going to hit bad shots, that you're not expected to do as much as you think you are, I think that could really help you.
To that, I've talked about your guys' social media handles and the website. You got these little graphs that you got on your Instagram account. And this one, yeah, folks, 28%, and it's like if you're listening, this is a pie chart. Considered to be the average number of greens in regulation you need to hit a score in the 80s. 28%. And that's part of your expectation thing too, right?
There you go. Absolutely. 100%. 100%.
You guys are brilliant, man. I love what you do. The content is awesome. And I love the overall approach you bring to it. I'm not going to ask for a parting shot because I've had you for so long. So I'm just going to say, Andy, please share where folks can find more from you.
So yeah, they can check us out obviously on social media, Me and My Golf, or check out our website, meandmygolf.com, where there's just, lots of great things going on over there as well. The membership site is doing really well and loads of people having some great results over there. So that'd be a great place to check us out.
Yes. Piers, on your website, it's also meandmygolf.com. Mm-hmm. Folks can become members there and sign up for content and the like. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So what they do is they come in and they have our main products. So the coaching plans, for instance. So that's when we take you through 6 weeks and how to break 100, how to break 90, how to break 80, and then how to be the total driver and hit ultimate irons. You know, these are all the plans that are in there. We've got some pretty cool stuff coming up. We've got an app which is launching pretty soon as well, it's actually out now, but it's only for the members for the moment. But yeah, we're really excited on the future. And do you know what? The thing that we really see as the biggest opportunity out there is to make golfers better at golf. You know, let's do that. Hey, that would be really nice, wouldn't it?
And it's less of this, a bit more of this.
He's pointing at his break. He's pointing at the 15th club audio listeners.
Indeed,
you guys are legends. I appreciate everything you do. Keep up the great work, man. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time, Mark. Keep up the great work yourself as well. Well done. Thank you.